In today's episode, I'll be giving my review for the 2016 film Hacksaw Ridge. So let's dive right into Hacksaw Ridge. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast. Hacksaw Ridge was released on September 4th in 2016 in Venice. In the US, it was released November 4th, 2016. The genre is an epic biographical war film. The runtime on Hacksaw Ridge is 2 hours and 19 minutes. The budget was $40 million. The director was Mel Gibson, who I've seen Braveheart before. I think Braveheart's a little bit overrated, but still a pretty solid movie. So, we'll see what I think of this one. This movie stars Andrew Garfield, Sam Worthington, Luke Bracey, Teresa Palmer, Hugo Weaving, Rachel Griffiths, Vince Vaughn, and Richard Pyros. So, in this review, I'll give my overarching review really quick, compare it to other movies we've reviewed so far on the DubCast, and then give my thoughts and reactions throughout the film of what I was reacting slash going through watching it. So, starting with the overarching review, I thought this was a very strong movie and maybe one of the best war movies I've seen and I've watched a lot of war movies recently. I've watched Platoon, Apocalypse Now. Um, there's more, but it just felt like this one was real. I feel like this was a lot more modern than a lot of the war movies that I've come to watch in the past couple of years. I think that added really a level of you know realisticness to it that you don't really see in a lot of war movies. I mean, you hear the gunfire and whatever, but you don't really see this in depth of what was actually happening on the screen. I think the filmmaking was so insanely detailed and graphic with blood, explosions, and fire everywhere. It felt like, in some of the scenes you're on that battlefield with the characters in the movie. So I thought that they did a really good job portraying that, and I really wanted to commend them on the set pieces and just how they were able to make this film. It felt like really like in depth and very detailed, so I appreciated that for sure. Um, I love the acting by Andrew Garfield, and I think he played his role very well in this film. I've had this movie on my list for a while to watch, and I did not know that Andrew Garfield was the main character in it. Pleasantly surprised by his performance in this. I don't think Andrew Garfield's a bad actor, but I thought this was maybe one of his best movies. I just thought he killed this role. He plays the character super well, and I wanted to commend him for that. So, obviously, this is a very great story to tell without feeling like any of the parts of it weren't that important. Obviously, he has his wife and love interest, but that didn't feel like that was distracting from the movie at all. It's his motivation, so I really appreciated really all aspects of the storytelling in this one. Desmond Doss, salute, brother. He was a goddamn hero, just a true champion of the world, and this country is very grateful for his service and everything he did for everybody, and I'm sure that the other countries are grateful for his service as well, so I wanted to commend him on his efforts in the war. That scene of him just saying one more with the music behind it was so inspiring. That was obviously my favorite scene of the movie, probably a lot of people's favorite scene of the movie. I respect how he never gave into the army's morals and always did what he wanted to do, and that's clearly portrayed throughout the movie. He has his set of ideas on what he thinks is right, and to the audience, like, that's pretty much what we think is right too. You want to save as many people as possible. War is not cool. So they didn't go over the top with the whole war is not cool thing, but it's kind of his ideas versus the army's ideas. So I thought they did a really good job portraying that theme as well. The cast was very strong in my opinion. Vince Vaughn in a very serious role, which I haven't really seen him in a very serious role like this. I thought he had a pretty good performance in this. Sam Worthington, man, every movie I see Sam Worthington in, he's just a beast. So I got to give him credit for having really good acting chops. He did a great job in his role in this film too. He starts off as more of a lesser character, becomes basically like one of the main characters by the end of it. So I wanted to commend him on his acting as well. Also, the guy who played Smitty, I'm not sure specifically which actor that was. I didn't do a ton of research before this. I just did my little spiel at the beginning. But Smitty was also an awesome character, and he kind of played the foil to Dalton Doss or Desmond Doss, pretty well. So I wanted to give a shout out to that actor as well. Also, the girl, his wife, and his dad, also great performances, are strong performances from their actor and actress as well. Finally, it feels like, you know, I'm giving every movie an 8. So that being said, my score for this one, going off the top, I'm giving it an 8.2. I felt like this movie was pretty strong. It's one of the better war movies I've seen. It didn't fall into many of the tropes that I expected it to. There weren't really any slow moments of it. It felt pretty real. The story was good, so I'm feeling strong 8.2 there. So, with that being said, let's compare it to the other DubCast movies we've reviewed on the channel. So, like I just said, here's the graphic. There's a lot of 8s on this list, and I don't know. I think I'm going soft. Maybe I like to give things higher scores. I'm more of a positive outlook kind of guy. But I do think all these 8s are really good movies, and when it gets to the 8s, I think it's more just about personal preference. A 9's pretty hard to be like. That 9 would be like one of my favorite movies. I'm not ready to say Hacksaw Ridge is one of my favorite movies of all time. That's reserved for about 15 to 20 movies right now, but 8.2, low 8.2, like some of the ones on there, a little bit better. So what this is our 23rd movie ranked on the DubCast. This goes to the number 9 slot, coming in the top 10, top half. So this ties with Brokeback Mountain. Comparing this to Brokeback Mountain on minuscule points, both 8.2s. I'm taking Hacksaw Ridge over it, hence its position in the tier list above it. This is the best quote-unquote war movie on the movie list so far that we've reviewed, beating out Good Morning Vietnam, and then technically also beating 300 and Last Samurai, but those are a little bit different war movies. So enough with the DubCast graphic. Let's dive into my thoughts and reactions throughout the film. So, starting off the movie, we have a very intense intro with a lot of graphic blood content and a hype speech from Desmond Doss. So yeah, this gets you right into the mood for what you're about to watch for the next 2 hours and 20 minutes, man. You know, I always like a good intro that grabs your attention, brings you right to what you are going to be watching, and brings you right into, gets you in the mood for what it is you're saying. I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So I didn't know what the actual story was about. For some reason, I just didn't look at the recap or like the trailer or anything. So, obviously I knew it was about war. So this is kind of setting that pace for you. Does a good job there. So we start with I keep calling him Dalton. Desmond Doss growing up, and his father breaks a glass bottle on the tombstone of someone he knows, and his hand starts bleeding. I think this was just to signify that his dad's an alcoholic. But this was kind of weird to off the jump. You're like, what is this? Is this guy just psycho? Like he just breaks a glass bottle on a tombstone. I mean, if that's someone you loved. I mean, I guess you're angry about the war and everything, but I don't know. I feel like breaking a glass bottle on a tombstone's a little bit disrespectful. Granted, he's probably hammered, so won't take too many points from him. But I just thought that was really interesting. So growing up, I was about to say Dalton again. Desmond Doss and his brother having typical fights, as kids do, but things escalate when Desmond takes a brick and hits his brother with a brick, and this is his come to Jesus moment of he's never going to use violence again. He never wants to be violent. Makes sense. His brother almost died. His brother's very hurt by this physically. I think they have to go to the hospital. He barely survives. So it would make sense that once you have a traumatic incident like this as a kid, take a little play fight a little too far. It would make sense that now you don't want to hurt anybody ever again. I'm not a big violence guy myself. I don't really like to hurt people at all. So I understand completely where he's coming from. I would not go to the draft or go to war. It's just not my thing. I don't like hurting people, killing people. That just seems appalling to me. So I completely understand where he's coming from, but this kind of sets the background for where the theme of the movie sort of heads and where his morals head with the violence and also being in the army and wanting to serve his country. So he drops into the hospital. At some point, he's hanging out there. I forget what the reason was. I think he had to check on somebody in the hospital. He is attempting a Riz challenge, as I like to call it, with the nurse. Kind of really awkward at first. She's taking blood from people. and he's like, I'll get my blood taken. He just wants to talk to her, which I respect. This is probably like some very strong work for the time period. Rizzing up a girl, just like, I hate myself for saying Riz. For trying to flirt with a girl, you gotta have a nice conversation, try and talk to her as much as possible while, bring yourself these opportunities, get in there, do your thing. This was pretty awkward though at first, but he ends up getting the date, so we can tell that this is going to be a relationship that lasts, because if she's into him now when he's being all awkward and shit, like when things start to be normal. Um, but nope, he doesn't actually get the date. I was wrong. He has to go back to talk to her again, and then he just kisses her without asking. Just saying. Um, but she gets all mad that he kissed her, and then this is I don't want to get in trouble, because I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say, and if I get canceled for this, cancel me, whatever. Aren't you supposed to? Don't do girls like it when guys ask them to kiss first? Aren't you supposed to just go in and do it? Like, not like like sexually assault and like force yourself upon her, but like if the vibes are good, you try and do a little kiss. It's unspoken energy. So I don't really, this whole thing, obviously she does end up liking him, so that was just something I've noticed, is like that's kind of a hard place to be, where I guess this is way back then, so it didn't really matter that much, but I don't know, she got a little bit upset that he kissed her without asking, and then obviously ends up marrying him and being his lover for life. So maybe I'm just overthinking this all. Moving on. So the boys are still living with their parents, Desmond and his brother. I have to think every time about, I keep wanting to call him Dolan. I don't know why. When I think of his name, I have to keep back on Desmond. So his brother joins the military. His father's not happy. He says, "Get out of my sight." So clearly the father, having been in the military before, having experienced the loss of either his friends, family, all of the above, is not happy that the boys are joining up with the military. Desmond's brother at first. So Dorothy, Desmond's lover at the time, after this happens, they're kind of riding around, doing their own thing. The relationship's getting more serious. She asks him if he's going to marry her or to get married, and then he proposes, and she just says yes. So this seems like a pretty classic, marriage story of an old couple. It's like, hey, I asked your grandfather if he wanted to get married. He just said yeah, and then we got married. It sounds about right. So after this, Desmond is going to war. He's decided to serve his country. Um, it's respectable. He has a lot of pride for his country, and he wants to serve in any way possible. But we're going to find out that it's not going to be the best fit in ideals in a bit. But he arrives at boot camp, and his sergeant is Vince Vaughn. He does the typical trope of walking in and just grilling everybody. His intro is really funny, where he's just, well, not funny, but it's just gas, where he's just walking in and just insulting everyone, roasting everyone. So as things start to pick up, Desmond will not touch a gun or work on Saturdays. That's the day of the Sabbath. Everyone makes fun of him, but they let him continue without violence for now. It seems, if I had to guess, the Army just needs people. They need bodies, especially people who want to be anything. Like medics are going to be out there and help a lot, so you don't want to just turn people away. So far, it's going okay. He's going to be part of the team, and his rules are going to last for a little bit. So Smitty, one of his people in this squadron that he's in, gives him shit for it. He takes his Bible, takes the picture out of the Bible, which is of his wife. The wife is a little bit attractive, so the boys are razzing him about that. Kind of out of pocket, but what are you going to do when there's no girls around? You got to look at pictures and just razz the boys. So makes sense. Smitty's kind of like the douche turned like nice guy of the movie. So as things more and more progress, the sergeant goes directly at him, flipping over his bed, then makes them all hike. Doss is still there. After this, he's getting more and more attacked, and things really reach a breaking point where they beat him at night. I hate this when I can't believe that people just beat up somebody at night. I mean, it makes sense. No one's around, and you need to get your moral thing in of trying to prove you're superior by beating somebody up in the middle of the night when they can't even defend themselves. Somehow Smitty's not involved in this, shockingly. I think this shows a lot about Smitty's character. You know, he is a little bit of an asshole, but he was not involved in this beating. And Doss, one in the morning, has a clear fucking black eye and clearly got the shit beat out of him, but he doesn't rat on anyone, so respectable not being a rat. Moving forward, I just thought it was a little bit egregious that they actually let Doss into this. They don't let him pass through the basic training because he won't touch a rifle. So the whole thing is the hypocrisy of the army, right? Where they let him continue on with everything, and then he finally gets to the point where he needs to like pass an inspection or something. That like if you don't pass rifle inspection, you're not allowed to come into the actual army. And he's got a wedding tomorrow with his wife, which is really depressing. He was supposed to be on leave, get married, come back, but now he can't because he's being thrown into army prison. But this was, I don't know. If you're gonna let the dude just carry on, like you got to be like either you're out or you're in. I feel like they were just teetering too much. I'm not sure how closely they adapted the story, but either you're in or you're out of the army. It's the fucking military. Like we need bodies. It's World War II, bro. I mean, what else are you gonna want? I feel like this was mad hypocritical about the army. I mean, the army is not known for being the most, I mean, I want to choose my words carefully. There's things that happen in the army that just don't make sense sometimes. I think we can all agree on that. And there's, you know, hazing culture and all that. We don't need to get into that. But this just felt like either he's in or he's out. You can't play like the toe the middle line with him, have him think he's in and then he's out type of thing. I just thought that was kind of wrong the way they went about that. So since he can't pass a rifle inspection, he's sent to the fucking army prison for not wanting to touch a rifle. Now he either has to get dishonorably discharged, which is like the worst thing you can ever do, or go to real prison. What is this fucking option? Can't he just like walk out? I guess if you join the military at any point, you want to leave. It's just dishonorably discharged at this point. I mean, that kind of makes sense. So I don't know. Obviously, you don't want to go to real prison, so probably choosing dishonorably discharged or given the choice strictly between those two, but he's going to find his way out of it, luckily. I thought this was a bullshit choice. I feel like all this just wrapped up way too fucking quickly it was sad to watch. So he's at his trial, where they're going to determine if he's going to prison because obviously he doesn't want to be dishonorably discharged. He's maybe going to just give up. He's really down in the dumps, but guess who shows up? His dad. He comes in clutch with a letter from his brigadier general. He went to go see him and got a letter from him, a letter of something explaining how Desmond can still stay in the army, that you don't need to pass the rifle inspection to stay in the army, to be a medic. So clutch moment from Desmond's dad. This is definitely his peak moment of, you know, he knows what war is. He didn't want his boys to go, but his boy is desperate right now and wants to be a medic this badly, so he's going to let him do it. And bring help on the way. So that was a really cool moment. His wife is also in the building, so they get to reconcile, and now he's finally able to actually go to war. So good job to everyone involved in that. Luckily, he didn't have to end up in prison or dishonorably discharged. So once they arrive onto Hacksaw Ridge, or right near Hacksaw Ridge, they meet soldiers from the 96th, who come back on trucks. They're mostly dead. The remaining soldiers meet with Doss's unit. They all have to climb up Hacksaw Ridge. They say the Japanese are tough outs. They bomb the shit out of the Japanese with the Navy. This is a constant thing that's kind of going on throughout the whole rest of the movie, is the Navy just bombing the shit out of them on the ridge. So this is like a really interesting battle ground, because you have the U.S. Army's like on the ground. They have, I'm assuming, like all the land up until here. And you have the ridge, which probably leads to like a bigger thing or connects to another bigger thing. But you have to climb up the ridge and then attack. So it's like very weird because it's kind of like a no man's land right when you get to the top of the ridge. It seems like this obviously will come into play later on when Doss is doing his thing. But I thought that this, I don't know if I've learned about Hacksaw Ridge in high school. It doesn't really sound familiar. But I'm sure it was mentioned at some point or another. I'm sure it's some very important war battleground, but just the way they did a really good job, like kind of they didn't even have to explain what was happening. You kind of just could picture it in your head, and you obviously could see what was going on. So with all that being said, they are going to have to climb Hacksaw Ridge if they want to attack the Japanese and win this battle. So, first barrage comes after they bomb the shit out of them. They just get wrecked. Smitty's going off, but he's using a dead body as a human shield. Is that even up to military code? Are you allowed to do that? I guess in the battlefield, everything goes. So Smitty saves Doss from a Japanese soldier. He was going to stab him, but Smitty, takes care of business. So respect for Smitty. Hopefully Doss can clutch up for him. Wink, wink. So the other medic that was in the other unit who kind of works with Doss now says to just give him a shot of morphine and move on. In regards to Ralph, who's another soldier in Doss's unit, this is the state of affairs now. Once they get barraged, everything hits full chaos. They gotta just give him a shot of morphine and go. But Doss wants to be more careful, wants to help people more, and be more like in depth with his not analysis, but his like helping. Really help these people out, not just give him a shot of morphine and move on. He obviously thinks that every life is worth saving, even the people who seemingly are dead. He doesn't give up on them, so that's really just Doss's spirit throughout. So as the battle rages on, Smitty has a one-man ambush with a satchel, blowing up a strong point, which was the Japanese bunker with this machine gun, kind of like a sentry gun where you just they were just wrecking the Japanese, wrecking the American soldiers with that. But Smitty goes one man, satchel bomb, boom, blows it up. So good job, Smitty. And quote of the movie: "In peace, sons bury their fathers, but in war, fathers bury their sons." Unfortunate truth. A lot of young people die in war. It sucks. War sucks. I mean, watching every war movie is just like war sucks. But that was a really good quote. So while things are quieting down a bit, Doss and Smitty have a conversation. So we learn a little bit about Smitty's background. He was an orphan and didn't know his parents at all. We learn a little bit about Doss as well. His father beat him and his brother. We kind of knew that, and also beat his mom. He had to take a gun from his dad and almost shot his dad. But in his heart, he says that I did shoot my dad. That's why he'll never touch a gun. So it wasn't actually the brick that stopped him from wanting to being able to hurt people. It was this moment with his dad saving his mom from the gun that his dad had. So kind of even a more deeper background into Desmond Doss's story. So I'm glad they didn't throw it all on you at once. It was nice to kind of learn about this throughout the film, and this was kind of a really nice, heartwarming scene in between all these crazy battles between Smitty and Doss, who we thought Smitty was kind of an asshole throughout, but now we learned a bit about his backstory. Him and Doss are able to connect, so I really enjoyed this scene. So battle moves on. More attacks are on the way. Obviously, you got to keep attacking. So the other medic has a very explosive death. He holds a grenade and just gets blown up. One of the more graphic deaths in the movie. Just so sad, and it doesn't even seem like it's just a moment. It's just, oh, this medic just got blown up, whatever. But it's like that's someone's like brother or son. You know what I mean? It's just sad. So Doss, paying back Smitty from earlier, saves him. But they do call it on Smitty, saying, "Can't save your buddy. Everything's just blowing around with him, or everything's blowing up around but them." But Doss decides to stay with Smitty, trying to help him as much as possible, but it's going to be futile. Smitty, unfortunately, has passed away. So this was another sad scene after just having that deep conversation as well. So after everyone's kind of settled down a little bit, Doss is essentially on the top of the ridge by himself, and he uses the net. So there's a net that they have to climb up to get to the top of the ridge, and then he uses like the pulley system that they have to bring stuff up to just keep pulling wounded soldiers down to the stretchers. And the Navy stops the artillery, so he has more safe ground to kind of bring everyone back, bring them down, save them. This is what I was talking about. One of my favorite scenes in the movie. He has to hide in the dirt, makes his way down a tunnel that gets grenaded, hides in plain sight, and he also helps heal a Japanese soldier, so he doesn't even pick sides. And this is when the montage starts, him saying, "Help me get one more," to God, while his hands are bleeding and shaking with hype music. So this is like the epitome of the movie. Doss just doing his thing, saving people. My favorite scene, gotta rewatch this scene for sure. Props, he just kept saving people and kept saving people. One more. So eventually he runs into Howell, which is Vince Vaughn's character, the sergeant. He helps Doss by hitting a sniper while Doss attempts to save him. He drags him while Hal shoots off the back of. So Doss is dragging him, and then Hal is shooting off the back of him. So that was a cool scene. He sends Hal down, saves him. After Hal gave him all that shit for not wanting to touch a gun, not wanting to be violent, he ends up saving him as well. So really, Doss just saves all the people who are preying on his downfall. But just great work by him. So he jumps down off the top of the ridge while everyone covers for him. And then back down on the ground, he gets proper recognition from Glover, who is the lieutenant, I believe. That's Sam Worthington's character. Didn't really talk about him throughout the thoughts and reactions, but he played a pretty good part in being like the kind of even more bigger asshole. He's like, I believe he's Howell's commander, so he's even a step above the sergeant. But he's even more anti-Doss. But finally, at the end of the movie, he's able to get the proper recognition from him, and they'll have to go up on the ridge during his Sabbath. He says he prays for them before they go, delaying the assault. So they're all ready to go up the ridge, and then Doss is praying for them on the Sabbath. It's a really cool scene of Glover recognizing Doss. They finally come to terms. Everything's all good now. So this was a great one, or a great scene as well. And finally, after this assault where Doss prays for them, the Japanese soldiers are down bad. They fake surrender and then throw grenades, wounding Doss. If you know anything about Japanese war fighting, they never surrender, so this would be a bad sign. I was they were like raising their hands, and I was like, they're really surrendering? Like, they don't do that. They don't. They just blow grenades, suicide bomb. So unfortunately, Doss is wounded during that encounter. The presumed Japanese leader we see seemingly stabs himself and gets beheaded. I'm assuming this is due to losing the war. There's kind of like a mini subplot of the Japanese in like the tunnel. So I guess this is like the general, I'm guessing, got it beheaded for losing the war. So eventually the Americans did take Hacksaw. Good job. Obviously we won World War II. So the final stats at the end are in. Doss was able to save 75 men back and forth through Hacksaw Ridge. He got a Medal of Honor, very deservedly so. Thank you for your service, Mr. Desmond Doss. What an awesome guy. I'm glad they were able to tell this story for him and portray this in such an awesome way. So at the end, we get a nice little compilation of the real Desmond Doss talking and the real Captain Glover talking. I almost shed a tear at the end. This was a very emotional ending, very heartwarming story, and very brave very brave acts by Mr. Desmond Doss. So thank you so much for your service, sir. Who knows what we might be speaking Japanese without him today. Probably not, but he did save a lot of people. He saved a lot of families, so they're, props to him and props to everything he did. That was very brave and very awesome. So that's all I have for Hacksaw Ridge. Pretty positive review. I really enjoyed watching this movie. Pleasantly surprised a little bit. War movies I've been seeing are kind of like the same level for me, but this one was able to get up into the 8s. That was really well done and one of my favorite war movies to date. So what did you guys think of Hacksaw Ridge? Am I way off? Am I right on cue? What am I? Leave a comment, leave a like, leave a dislike, subscribe. You know the deal. We got more movie reviews coming. Next up is Bourne Identity, and then after that, we'll see what happens, but you can always expect more content coming from the DubCast. Thank you so much for all the support, and the movie reviews do really well. Well, not really well. They just get the most views on my channel, so love and appreciate you as always. As always, be easy.